Okay, so now that you have had some practice filling these in, I'm going to let you go ahead and do those on your own, okay, after the video. Um, Below that, there is a graph of the data that where you're gonna plot that data. Okay, so once you have this chart filled in, then you're going to make points with T and M or T and S, right? So we're going to make points that are a time period after 1950. That's going to be our X variable. And then the amount is going to be our Y. So for example, the first two for milk would be 0.36.4 and 10.33.64. Okay, so those are the first 2 points. Then you're going to have 20 comma something, 30 comma something. You're going to graph all those for milk. And then that will give you one line. Okay, let's think about what that line is going to look like. The milk line is going to look like this, right? Because milk started out higher and is going lower. Then we're going to do the same thing for the soda information. So the soda, the first point is going to be 0, 10.8. The second point is going to be 10, 18.5. So the soda line is getting bigger. So this down here is going to be our T in years. So 0 up to 50 we could do. And then this is going to be the number of gallons. So the soda line is going to go like this. And if you remember what we're looking for, you can see on the next page in number 7. You look at the table and the graph to figure out where the amount of milk we're consuming is the same as the amount of soft drinks, okay, roughly, about when. All right, so I'm going to let you do that graph on your own. Okay, I will post a screenshot or something of the answer, okay, of this and that, so you will be able to find that. I'll probably just email it to everyone. That's probably easier than trying to put it into Carnegie. Okay, so you can look at that, answer number 7 and number 8. And again, I'll have the answers to that, but I want you to try it on your own first. But let's look at number 9. All right, so let me write up here again our two equations. So we came up with equations that said M equals 36.4 minus 0.276t. And then we came up with a soft drink equation that was 10.8 plus 0.77t. So in number 9, we want to use those equation models to find when the amount of milk we're consuming is equal to the amount of soda we're consuming. After how many years, so we can figure out what year were those two the same. So really what I want is I want this, whatever this value is for a certain value of t, whatever this gives us, I want that to also give, I want this equation to give us the same number with that same value of t. Like after 1 year was it the same? After 12 years was it the same? After 43 years was it the same, right? When were those two the same? Because we know milk is going down and soda's coming up, and they're going to cross each other at some point because this ends up lower than that one. So I really want to know when these two expressions are going to be equal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set those two equations, the right-hand side of both equations, I'm going to set those two equal. I want to know what my value of t would have to be so that this equals this. Okay, now you're probably looking at this and thinking that it looks really complicated, okay? But it's really not much different than what we did in the last lesson, or in the last module, sorry. So if I have something like 5x minus 3 equals 12. Okay, we did equations like that. And we wanted to get x by itself. So we wanted to move the other number over. And if we want to move something, we either add or subtract it. Whatever's going to make it cancel out. And if I do it on this side, then I also have to do it on this side. So this cancels out. I have 5x equals 15. Now I don't want to move the whole term. I just want to cancel out that 5. So I'm going to divide by whatever's in front of the x, because then I end up with a 1 there, and I get x equals 3. Okay, so you remember those steps that we did in Module 3. This really only has one little tiny step more than that. Part of the reason this looks worse is because we have numbers like 36.4 instead of numbers like 5. Okay, so don't let all the decimals get you nervous about it. Okay, you can use your calculator. It's just another number. The other thing that's different is that now I have variables on both sides of my equal sign. It's the same variable. Up here, I only had x on one side. Well, that's not really a problem either. Okay, we just need to move things around so that all the variables are on one side and all the numbers on the other. It doesn't matter which side. Often we try to have, often I think people are a little more comfortable having t on the left and then having it equal something on the right, but it really doesn't matter. So just like here, I had to move this constant over here to leave the x alone, we're going to be doing that here also. We're going to move the t's to one side, the numbers to the other, and then we'll do that last step of dividing. So I'm just going to say, let's have the t's on this side. So I'm going to leave this term here, and I'm going to move this term away from it because it does not have a t, and I'm going to move this term over here so that all the t's are together. Okay. Now let me just point out, there's not just one right way to start this problem. You can actually move any one of these 4 terms, depending on where you want your t's to be. It doesn't really matter. But I'm going to choose to leave this one here just so my t stays over on this side. That's just a choice I made. So if I want t's on this side of the equal sign, then I don't want this guy. I want to move this one, right? How do I move a term? Well, if it's positive, I'm going to subtract it. And I also need to subtract it over on this side of the equal sign. Which one am I going to subtract it from? Well, it's a plain old number. It does not have a t, so I have to subtract it from the other plain old number. So this cancels out. Make sure you bring that negative down. Here's what I have left on the left-hand side. I take 10.8 and I subtract 36.4 and I get negative 25.6, and I still have my plus 0.77t. Okay, so I still have t on both sides of the equal sign, but I'm a little closer because now all of my plain old numbers are all on one side. They're not scattered like they were before. Okay, so now I'm going to move this t over here because I want all the t's over here. So it's a plus 0.77. I'm going to subtract 0.77t. And I'm going to subtract 0.77t here also. And I can do that because these both have t's in them. So they're like terms, so I can do that. So this cancels out. Over here, I have negative 0.276 minus 0.77. Oops, hang on. Negative 0.276 minus 0.77 is negative 0.494. oops, you know what? That's not right. That didn't seem right to me. I forgot my negative. So let's try this again. That looks better. Negative 1.037. T. So make sure what you put in the calculator is right. And I have negative 25.6 over on this side. Okay. Now, what I have here is really exactly the same as what I have here. It's the same process. The just numbers aren't as nice. So I want to get t all by itself. It's being multiplied by something, so I have to divide a negative divided by a negative is going to give me a positive, which is good because I don't want to have a negative number of years from 1950. That wouldn't really make sense. So I'm going to take negative 25.6 divided by the negative 1.037, and I end up with 24.69. Okay, so what is t? T is the number of years after 1950, right? So remember, we're trying to figure out when the two amounts of strengths are going to be the same. 24 point something years after 1950. So this is like partway through 1974, right? Because we don't know exactly when in 1950 we're starting, but 24 years, so it's sometime in 1974. That's when these two will be the same. So this is also where your graph should show that. It should show that they cross at somewhere right around 24 on that x-axis. And that would also tell that your answer is 1974. Okay? So again, I will put up an answer for the graph in number 7 and number 8. Number 7, you already know the answer. It's going to be right around 24, 1974. Okay, so that's the end of 4.2. If you have questions, please let me know.